Welcome to the World Sari Day panel discussion. Today we are celebrating the timeless elegance of the sari with three phenomenal women who embody its spirit in very unique ways. And not just unique ways, but very, very inspiring ways too. They're not just sari enthusiasts. The three of you are actually torchbearers of a global sari movement, or should we say, the sari revolution. And the stories are just as varied and unique as the drapes that you carry. Let me introduce them to you, although none of them are actually strangers on social media. First, Sumitra Selvaraj, a storyteller at heart. Sumitra is a prolific writer known for her enchanting handle, Sarees and Stories. Hailing from Malaysia, she's not just a fluent writer, but she's also a healthcare advocate who works passionately for the cause of breast cancer awareness. Sumitra's sari journey started off very early. And it's interesting to note that she wore a sari for her high school prom. Her writing weaves memories with her countless saris, embracing them all with unconditional love. A very, very good morning and a very warm welcome to you, Sumitra. Very delighted to have you here.
Thank you for having me. Happy World Sari Day.
Thank you. Next, we have Kuppulakshmi Murthy. She is a powerhouse in the corporate world. Kuppulakshmi is the global head of Zoho Startups. She exudes confidence wherever she goes, be it boardrooms, and she strides into boardrooms with power, with grace, often draped in 6 yards. And it doesn't end there. You often carry your saris to vacations too. Very recently, we saw a picture of you next to the Eiffel Tower. So that really shows her love for her saris. Honored to have you, Kuppulakshmi.
It's totally my pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Swati Mukund, an educator, marathon runner, blogger, fitness icon, and singer. Swati wears many hats and many saris too. Her effortless grace, quirky monologues have charmed many online, and her commitment to fitness is legendary. How many actually run an international marathon in a sari? Swati is one of them. Swati inspires us to embrace life fully, whether on the track or in your car. Very, very warm welcomes, Swati. Finally, we're here with you. Very happy to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's amazing to be on board with so many incredible people that I know. It's entirely my privilege and pleasure.
Thank you. Together, the three of them bring a rich tapestry of stories, experiences, and insights to this celebration of the 6 yard wonder. Let's dive into the world and hear how the sari continues to inspire, empower, and unite all of us. All right. So let's start with Swati. My first question is going to be to you. Until voices like yours, began to really shape and empower the sari community, people had this notion that, Western clothing was more. Women who wore Western clothing were perceived more modern than their counterpart who wore saris. And often words like auntie, behenji, those were the words that were associated with these women. What is your take on that? Because, you've really shattered that conventional stereotype. So what is your take on that? Because, the way you actually carry a sari, it's not just a clothing, right? It's a powerful statement of who you are. So I want to hear that from you.
Interestingly, I've realized that many times, comments from people are often a reflection of their own insecurities or things that they've not been able to do, which is why when they see somebody else doing it, so for one section of people, it is inspiring. But for another large section of society, it's often a reminder of, what they could have done. So, I always say that, if somebody is reminding you of what you could have done, why not take it forward and actually do it as opposed to trying to, pull them down for doing something which is, which is something you like looking at. So, be it concerts, be it, shows in pubs, or events, I've always found, in fact, funnily, some years back, somebody asked me, Swati, where are your normal clothes? I said, what do you mean by where are your normal clothes? I said, no, I mean, jeans and t-shirts. I said, we have, over the years progressively made the sari as something which is not normal or everyday clothing, by actually asking people, is it your birthday today, is it your anniversary, are you going to somewhere special, why are you wearing a sari? So and I think the only way to kind of break that is to wear it more often and to wear it as an everyday garment, and carry it as a part of wherever you go. I mean, in fact, recently when I ran the Singapore half marathon in a sari, there were so many people who stopped me on the way to tell me that, wow, A, it's inspiring. B, it's really nice to see the sari on an international platform, because it's something people often shy away from embracing. And I think that putting it forward, putting it across to a lot more people to say that, what, I am very comfortable with what I wear and where I come from. So, I will carry this with elegance everywhere. So I think that has really, paved way for, more conversations around this. And for people, you do not have to normalize or bring the sari back. The sari was always there. It's just that, we need to wear it more often.
Very well said. You're true. And, your opening line about other people's insecurities in trying to bring you down is actually very, very. And, the way your portrayal of the sari is done in such a way that is actually relevant to the current generation, right? The sari has been a timeless, it's been there since Draupadi times till today. But how we portray it, how we carry it, make it relevant to the current generation is, all, is the real thing. And you do a great job. I mean, all three of you do a great job, but, very well said. Kupu Lakshmi, for you, you're high up on the corporate ladder. A lot of women these days admire saris, but when it actually comes to draping them, they find it very daunting. It almost feels like a foreign language, how it just seems very difficult. Although, you carry it with so much ease. There are many, many women out there. And I'm not just talking Gen Z here. So, and you wear it, in the corporate landscape with so much ease. So what is your message to, women who are out there who are not so comfortable, making the sari universal?
Wow, that's a great question. I used to be that woman not many years ago, because wherever you travel or when you're entering into an important meeting, the functionality of what you're wearing was very, very important, especially for women. Even today, I think who you are and what you wear is quite synonymous even before you open your mouth. So to all the women out there, firstly, I want to say, own your personality. And it's like learning to do anything: swimming, cooking, reading. At initially it's quite uncomfortable, you're very conscious. Eventually you get to own it. Naturally come to stop worrying about what people think about you, and you make it a part of your personality. So I think first step is to just start doing it, like Swati said in so many words. Also, for me, this journey has been very, very similar. I didn't come to fall in love with sari from day one. My first vivid memory of wearing a sari is almost a fight with my mom. For the very first time, there was a farewell in school. And then usually for my height, the sari and the number of pleats that I could take was a challenge even then. And how my mom used to wear sari in 1990s I'm talking about was very different from how I wanted to drape it. So the very functionality and how it brings out my personality was very important. And eventually I came to own it because I function from a space where there is mostly male dominance. So women in tech is still a concept we actively talk about, and then we work with a lot of entrepreneurs for my role, everyday role. So every time you enter a space where you establish your work and you want to talk about business, it always starts though with small talks and it stays longer. I want to get into business, I want to get work done. And how I look, perhaps the notion of I'm far younger than them and all that prejudice that comes with the look, the bias that comes with how a certain person should look, especially if they have to talk business and tech. I wanted to break that. So even to go sit in a panel and own the chair, I realized that I have to occupy a certain space. So I started thinking about what is my power message where I can, the very minute I can start talking about work and represent who I am. So I eventually came to own it. It took a lot of practice, telling myself, standing in front of the mirror. Because when you go to events, when you travel, for us women, access to toilets, how to gracefully, elegantly do everything. The standard is
Right.
so high that you can't not be conscious. It takes a lot of practice, right? So, how do you adjust your pallu in front of everyone to make sure that you look good? You see, you're sitting well, you're standing up in a certain, the posture is always important. So, I've come to own it, looking at all of them. Interestingly, I'm following Swati and Sumitra only now, but so many times I've seen their Instagram stories shared via friends, via their friends, and it feels like I've known them long enough. So somewhere involuntarily, and I have imbibed in it, where it's become my very love language, my power language, my feminine language now. So to the women out there, till you own it, just keep doing it. We are all there. We're all in this together.
Very well said. I like that quote, own your personality. It's very, very powerful. And your response was very candid. Often, sari enthusiasts, sari influencers, what we typically hear, and the true story is that, they were always in love with saris. They their mom was the style icon. They grew up loving saris. It just came very naturally. And your story here is very different. For you, it was acquired taste. You said, this is not something that came very naturally to you. So I think that again is very, very inspiring. You saw sari as, sari was power dressing to you, right? Where when you wore a sari, people noticed you, and you had that presence. You had that strong presence when you entered this room, when you entered this board, which was predominantly men, right? So okay, that is very interesting, because to your point, not everybody grows up falling in love with saris. To many, it could be acquired taste, and hopefully they are inspired by your message. Sumitra, you hail from Malaysia. I know Malaysia has a lot of Indian cultural influences, but yet it's a foreign country. Ambika and I have spent a good deal of our time in the US. And, while we were there, all things Indian, predominantly our clothing, Indian food, cricket, Bollywood, all of that were ways for us to be connected to our homeland. Like they often say, you can take an Indian out of India, but the reverse is not true. You can't take an Indian out of you can't take India out of an Indian. And that was very true in our case. And whenever I wore saris or anything, ethnic, it was a way for me to have that strong cultural identity that I was very, very proud of. Now I want to hear from you of how the local community perceives the sari. Do you sometimes feel awkward where you feel like it's still not accepted? What is your take on it?
So I think it's important to kind of make the distinction between the Indian diaspora in Malaysia, who are perhaps expat Indians, but also then the other side would be people who have been in India for 5 or 6 generations. Who've been in Malaysia for 5 or 6 generations, who actually consider themselves Malaysian, not Indian. Not Indian by nationality. We would be Indian by ethnicity, but Malaysian by nationality, right? And so the cultural connect that you speak about is interesting because yes, while a large part of us might retain culture, but that depends on how close your relationship is to India. I'll give you a really good example. My dad was born in India. And he moved here as a 2-year-old and then never went back until he was over 40, I believe. He personally didn't have a lot of a pull to India, although my grandparents did, and they went back home on a regular basis. So my dad is somebody, he is basically, you'd say that he was born in India, and through him, I am first generation Malaysian, right? My mom's family has been in Malaysia for 5 generations. And therefore, she has absolutely no links or ties to India whatsoever. And yet, my mother and my paternal grandmother, who both have very, very different experiences with India, both liked saris and both wore saris regularly. So it's really difficult to explain this to somebody who lives outside of Malaysia, because we tend to see the Indian diaspora as a homogenous entity, as somebody who has left India to kind of go and explore a brave new world. But I think the truth of the matter is, and I can speak for Malaysia for sure, the Indian diaspora in Malaysia is extremely complex and sometimes complicated. And therefore, the sari may be seen as a kind of a part of your legacy, a part of your heritage, but it's not necessarily something that ties you back to India, if that makes sense. And for me, it was very much a case of, growing up, being very close to my paternal grandmother, who loved her saris and always seeing her in a sari, but also growing up watching my mom, who was a corporate person, wear saris every day. And like Kupu said, when it came to me wanting to start to go into the career field or to go into the job market, my only reference point for what power dressing was what my mom wore. My mom is incredibly successful at what she does, and therefore, why wouldn't I want to dress like her in order to do well at my career? So to this day, I think the sari is still unusual in Malaysia outside of festivities and festivals and weddings and all of that. But part of the reason why I wear the sari regularly is because, I feel that, like Swati said, number one, you need the agency to be able to make your own choices, right? To wear what you feel comfortable in. And that means being able to wear a sari or not wear a sari, depending on your choice. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what I've hopefully done with my own circle over the last 25, 30 years of wearing a sari, to just be able to tell people that, listen, whether I'm in a sari or whether you see me in the shortest of shorts, I'm still the same person. Yeah.
Interesting. And it's very fascinating, because you're saying that your mom is a 4th or 5th generation. And then you embrace the sari because it actually tied you to India, because your mom herself was not, hailing from India. She grew up in Malaysia. But you loved the sari as a garment by itself. It was more the cultural connection. Okay, that's very, very powerful. And I'm sure your mom is super happy if she loves saris. She's super happy to see you, where you are, and how beautifully you actually drape these saris and make a powerful style statement every time.
I don't think she's very happy about me stealing her saris every now and then, but yeah, it's nice to be able to have a garment to share like this. Yeah.
Interesting you mentioned the word stealing. So at Shobhadam, when we started off, once in a while we used to have saris that didn't meet our quality bar, and our mom used to be the happiest person because she would steal those saris.
That's nice.
Yeah. So on a related note, you're not just evangelists for the sari, but you've courageously shared some of your most vulnerable moments with the world. Right, Sumitra, your heartfelt writings about mental health and healing. Kupu, your powerful TED Talk, very inspiring TED Talk, on facing life's harshest blows and, coming out of it stronger. And Swati, your honest reflections on battles and triumphs, especially, in the field of fitness. So what I want to ask all three of you is, in a world, where people can be so judgmental, people read between the lines, people extrapolate, where does the courage come for you to be so expressive, so honest about yourself? And let's start with you, Swati.
I feel in a large way, to also, I mean, I missed that bit when you asked me my first question. So if, it's we who've made Western outfits synonymous with formal events. I mean, us at the end of the day, and it's the responsibility lies on us to kind of negate that and walk into boardrooms, like Upu said, and, events and talks and all of that in a garment you're most comfortable in. So I think the responsibility lies on us. And I feel judgments are something that are entirely, my mother would always tell me that if somebody is judgmental, it is a reflection of the depravity of their mind and not what you carry or you embody. So in my head there's always been a very clear distinction between the fact that somebody's judgments about me is has got no connection to who I am or what I share or what I speak about. So which is why I allow just one or two people to officially pass judgments about the way I look, or the way what I should wear, or what I write, what I put forth on social media. So I'm very particular about that, because I know not everybody is going to carry the same intention. So and beyond that inner circle, I think judgments are something that are bound to be a part of everyone's lives. It's not something that is you know it's really really common. So I think I have learned to shut out the noise beautifully, because which is also an amazing byproduct of me being a runner, because I'm permanently, the noise is always shut out. I'm on my own. I'm very comfortable with my space, with my silence.
You,
I'm as comfortable in a crowd. Sorry?
you just run away from the noise.
I don't need to run away. I'm like, it's like, oh, okay, fine. Like, I can hear you, but I do not want to, kind of throw any light on what you're saying, because it's not me.
Hmm.
No part of the judgment is true, and none of it has got anything to do with me. It's just on you. I mean, I do not want to share the load for somebody's judgments. So I
Hmm.
have very clearly made that distinction in my life.
Perfect. Pupu, your thoughts?
Mm, okay, my thoughts are in so many places. I'm trying to collect as I'm actively listening to you all. I think my courage, my confidence comes from these years. It comes from my most vulnerable experiences in life, because I've come to realize that I love connecting with people, and I love taking technology to people who don't speak technology as a first language. And there is work, and then there is who you are, that you bring to work, because we're talking about sari, and I don't wear sari regularly at home. So with context to work, where I wear sari and how I express myself, I think the courage comes from the mistakes that I have made, and the painful situations in life where I've come to realize who I am. I've filtered down people who don't understand that my vulnerability is what makes me unique, and that is my strength and not my weakness. Somehow the relatability with people, you strike a chord. You come to remember people, or they remember you, not because of the various success stories or how you overcome obstacles, but the very journey that you take to reach your own milestones in life. I think people beautifully connect with that. Oh, she is very human. She's just like I am. And what makes her unique is that she's flawed, and her personality is a combination of all of these experiences. She didn't arrive as this successful person, has helped me do my job very well, represent my thoughts very well, my organization very well. So I've come to believe in the power of vulnerability. And only looking back in hindsight, I've realized uh, it's cliche, but my mom has been an inspiration, because she's been extremely simple. Given the challenges that life threw at her, she had this certain conviction or inner strength, inner peace, that she's very happy with who she was. She did not need any external validation. And for two young girls who faced extremely difficult economic conditions in our earlier lives, where most of our lives we wore hand-me-down clothes and books borrowed from others, this was an important anchor to build our personality, to not center our life around materialistic things, interestingly, and always believe in the power of culture, how I can relate my personality, the core part of it. So much of my strength comes from my uniqueness, how different I am from people. At the same time, how I can use some of my life stories to connect with people. Because organizations come and grow, your work keeps changing. Minus all of this, who you are is something I want people to remember for a long time to come. So that's where it comes from.
Very nice, very nice. Sumitra, your thoughts?
I always think, what is the absolute worst thing that could happen if somebody was judgmental of me? Would they not want to be my friend anymore? I can live with that. Um, are they going to say terrible things about me behind my back? Well, because it's behind my back, it doesn't really affect me. Are they going to, is it going to affect my work in some way? And if it does, is it really the kind of space I want to be working in anyway? Speaking about mental health openly or mental health diagnosis can have its pitfalls. And I admit you have to have a certain amount of privilege in order to be able to speak about it. I am confident, not just in my own abilities, but I'm confident also, personally and professionally as well. I know that speaking about, my struggles with medication or my visits to a psychiatrist, they are who I am. They don't impact, having a mental health diagnosis to me, or what I have personally, doesn't really impact the work that I do. If it does at some point in the future, that's a bridge that we will have to cross when we get through it, when we get to it, right? But this is what life is. Life is filled with little challenges and big challenges for everybody. Whether you choose to speak about it or not, it's really nobody's business but your own. But perhaps by talking about it, you might just open up a little window for somebody else to kind of pop their head out and say, yeah, it's nice to know that, I'm not alone in going through this. My confidence for speaking about this openly also comes from perhaps my circle, right? I think about it. Who would hurt me if they judged me? And the truth is, the only two creatures would be my husband and my dog, and neither one of them judges me. So I really, outside of that circle, if anybody needs to judge me or feels the inclination to judge me, they can go ahead and do so, because it really doesn't affect me in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, but the day my dog starts judging me, I may have a problem.
Yeah, very, very different perspectives, I think. But the common, the common line was, just be yourself, listen to your heart. It doesn't really matter what others, perceive. You have to be true to yourself, and that's where the confidence really comes from. I think as a person in the tech space, being an angel investor, I can relate to all the things that you've mentioned. I have weight issues myself, but I think the inner confidence just keeps me going, and I really feel happy the way I am. Because it really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what others think about me. It's our personal journey. It's our personal milestones that we are crossing every single day. So what others think doesn't matter at the end of the day. Let's end this beautiful panel discussion with a question for all three of you. And this is a light question. What is your unforgettable sari memory? And let's start with you, Pupu.
Oh, wow. Let me see. I think my most unforgettable, every time I wear sari, each of those moments have, they're very, very precious, because there's always a special connection that's been made. But since I get to travel a lot the past 3 years, I gave a keynote in Brazil, in one of the northeastern side of that. And it's a tech conference. And it happened last year. And I had to go to St. Louis, and this was not unlike Santa Catarina or Florianopolis, where it's a city like Chennai, like metro place. This is Northeast, and people are deeply connected to their culture and language. And so when I wore that to my keynote, it's about 3,000 people. That's one place where I felt like I was treated like a princess. So the very reason why I wanted to wear a sari was to be able to speak tech, but there was everything else other than tech, and felt like every conversation was like a red carpet. I'm not quite used to that, but I learned how to take compliments. That was my most memorable moment of wearing a sari. That's a great question. Thank you for asking that.
Lovely. Who doesn't want to be a princess?
That's right.
Sumitra.
I think hands down would be the time that I had to climb over my house gate because it was raining and my remote didn't work, and I'd just gotten back from work, and there was no other way to get into the house except to climb over the let's see, I'm nearly 6, 7, 8 foot high gate.
Wow.
And yes, I was in a chettinad cotton, which I hiked up not too indelicately, and managed to get over the house gate, and I got over onto the other side, and this was it was almost 18, 19 years ago, and thankfully I had far more mobility and far stronger knees back then. But I jumped down from the top of the gate into my garden, and my 2 dogs at that time were just standing there staring at me like, "What are you doing, woman?" And I don't know if any of the neighbors saw me, but this was before the age of WhatsApp residential groups, so there was no hot gossip going around. I think, I hope.
So few and put it on social media. Quite adventurous, very adventurous, I would say. Swati, your unforgettable sari memory.
Actually, 2 of them, one good and one not so happy, but then it kind of had a role to play in shaping who I am today. So I'll start with the not so good one. So as part of my 10th standard farewell, we wear saris when we have a school farewell, and I had worn this really beautiful sari, and my mom had dressed me up, and I went to school. But at that point, every single person present in school there said that, you know what, you don't look like one of us, you look like a teacher. So this is what they had to say. At that point, it did hurt a bit. But then over a period of time, I realized that, so which is something I'd like to add, all 3 of us have, all 4 of us rather have spoken about not letting judgments affect us. But that is today. It's been a beautiful learning curve over the years. It hasn't come overnight. So to the people listening to us, I'd say that it's not, and all of us would agree here that we're all still work in progress. There can still be times when there might be something which is not so happy that we listen to, but the agency and the power and the understanding to make that distinction has come now over so many years and so many events that we've been part of, and incidences that we've been privy to, or unfortunately dragged into, or whatever. So that is one. So at that point it did affect me, but then considering that I do that for a living now, and that have had the privilege to do that at some of the best institutions in the country, so I'm like, I'm glad, you called it ahead of time and said that I look like a teacher, because yes, I do, and I own it. So that is one. But, the other unforgettable memory is when I ran in Singapore in a sari last year, wherein, I've run and practiced in a sari several times. So also, fortunately, I live in Mumbai, where nobody has the time to give you a second glance and look at you as to why are you running in a sari. They're like, okay, there's somebody running. So a large part of my personality is also, thankfully, the place where I come from. So so that was another unforgettable memory, wherein it felt really nice to put the sari on a global platform in a manner I know best.
Lovely, lovely. I like that you called all of us work in progress, because that's what we all are, right? Often people think that, things naturally came to us,
Yeah.
we can completely ignore, but that's not Even now, all of us do get affected at some point of time, and it
Yeah.
has with practice and over time. Um, so one question, since our social media community knows that we are going to go online, this particular question came, and it's a short question. So, who's your favorite Bollywood sari icon, Sumitra?
Ooh, a tough question for me. I don't watch a lot of Indian movies. So no, and you know, I was never the sort of person who kind of dressed based off movies. So no, that's not a good
You
one for me at
own
all.
style, right?
Sorry?
You are your own style icon.
That's very, very flattering, but I'll take it. Thank you.
Kupu, who's your favorite sari style icon?
From the movies, right? I think I'll go back to those olden days. I would say like a Sridevi or a Hema Malini. I think there was so much style even when we couldn't see much color those days.
Yeah.
Very
Even
true.
those during black and white days, I remember they carried it off so well.
Very true. Very true. Swati?
I would agree with Kupu on that. But largely, my sari icons are real life people, like, people like you, people I see every day, people I see, when, I mean, especially in construction sites and all of that, when I see women working in a sari, those are, inspirations that I take forward because I've fortunately we get to see how people in situations like these are beautifully wearing the sari and not seeing it as a deterrent. So yes, I mean, of course, Bollywood and its style has always been at least inimitable in the olden movies, like Upu said. But yeah, I mean, it's a mix of both.
Lovely. Lovely.
Your own ambassador, Vidya Balan, carries it so beautifully.
Yeah.
You too are the stars. How you talk about sari, and yeah, we've grown to see. I've learned various facets of how personality and saris, and I want to say you all are OGs. I'm still the baby. I'm learning curve, owning it, learning about it some more. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Lovely discussion. Again, a very, very happy World Sari Day. It was such a joy, getting to hear your perspectives, and I'm sure this will inspire many, many. And I'm sure many will actually want to embrace the sari more. And on that note, we will call it a wrap. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, Aparna.
Thank you so
Thank
much. Thank you.
you.
This was one
Thank
of the
you.
most intentional, genuine conversations I had in recent times. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Likewise. Thank you.
Bye
Talk
bye.
to you all
Thank
soon.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.